Did you know there's a town in Ohio where almost everyone left after a single night of terror no one ever wanted to explain? That there are roads where drivers claim to pick someone up, only for them to vanish minutes later? And that there are places where screams have been heard coming from empty buildings, years after they were shut down? Get ready, because today you'll discover 33 short, real, incredible, and shocking stories from Ohio that will completely change the way you see this extraordinary state. 33. The day the sky fell in Cleveland. In 1986, the city of Cleveland wanted to break a world record and improve its national image. They released 1.5 million helium balloons into the air simultaneously. It looked like a colorful, soaring dream at first, but the weather soon turned sour. A cold front pushed those millions of balloons back down toward the ground and the surface of the water. They blanketed Lake Erie just as the Coast Guard was desperately searching for two missing fishermen. The vast sea of floating latex made it impossible to spot a human head bobbing in the waves, and helicopters could not fly safely through the thick clouds of plastic. Even the local airport had to shut down its runways because pilots simply could not see. What was meant to be a joyful celebration turned into a logistical nightmare and a series of massive lawsuits. 32. The amphibian of the Little Miami River. In the quiet town of Loveland, back in 1955, a traveler claimed to see three strange creatures gathered by the side of the road. They were not men, nor were they simple animals. These beings stood about 4 feet tall, had leathery skin, and possessed heads like frogs. One of them supposedly waved a silver wand that emitted sparks of light. You might think this was just a tall tale from a weary driver, but the story gained legendary status when a police officer spotted a similar creature in 1972. He described a crouched figure that climbed over a guardrail and vanished into the murky waters of the Little Miami River. While skeptics suggest it was merely a large escaped iguana or a trick of the light, locals still keep a watchful eye on the riverbanks whenever the moon hangs low. 31. The deluge of the Miami Valley. In the early spring of 1913, the heavens opened up over Ohio and did not close for days. The Great Miami River could not contain the sheer volume of water, and Dayton soon found itself submerged under 20 feet of rushing currents. This was not a gentle rising of the tide, but a violent surge that swept away homes and businesses like they were made of balsa wood. Fires broke out when gas lines ruptured, and firefighters were forced to navigate the streets in rowboats while the buildings around them burned to the waterline. It remains the greatest natural disaster in the history of the state. The tragedy led to the creation of the first regional flood control district in the United States of America, proving that the people of Ohio would rather move mountains of earth than ever face such a watery grave again. Before continuing, be sure to subscribe and leave a like to keep discovering the strange and incredible history of our entire country. 30. The river that burned for change. Cleveland has a reputation for being tough, but even the residents were shocked when the Cuyahoga River caught fire in June of 1969. It was not the first time the water had ignited, as industrial waste and oil slicks had made the surface more flammable than a kerosene lamp. However, this specific blaze captured the national imagination after a major magazine published photos of the inferno. The image of water, the very element meant to extinguish flames, being consumed by fire served as a wake-up call for the entire country. This unusual event became the primary catalyst for the creation of the Environmental Protection Agency and the Clean Water Act. While the city took a beating in the press, the burning river ultimately led to a global movement to protect our natural resources from the heavy hand of unchecked industrial progress. 29. The tragedy of the Silver Gateway. In December of 1967, the Silver Bridge connected Conaga, Ohio, to the state of West Virginia. It was a busy evening filled with Christmas shoppers when a single eye-bar in the suspension chain failed. Within seconds, the entire structure folded into the icy depths of the Ohio River. 46 people lost their lives that night in a scene of utter chaos. What makes this story even more unsettling are the reports that preceded the collapse. For months, residents had claimed to see a tall winged creature with glowing red eyes stalking the region. Many believers still insist that the appearance of this Mothman was an omen of the impending doom. While engineers pointed to metal fatigue and heavy loads as the cause, the legend of the winged visitor remains inseparable from the dark history of that fateful bridge and the lives it claimed. 28. The 12-mile-per-hour outlaw. Long before we had superhighways and high-performance sports cars, a man named Harry Myers made history in Dayton, Ohio in In 1904, he holds the dubious honor of receiving the very first speeding ticket ever issued in the United States of America. At the time, the local law required drivers to maintain a speed that would not endanger the public, and Harry was caught moving at a blistering 12 miles per hour. To put that in perspective, a modern bicycle rider could easily double that speed without breaking a sweat. The officer who stopped him was likely on foot or perhaps riding a horse, making the chase feel more like a slow-motion comedy than a high-stakes pursuit. Harry had to pay a fine for his reckless velocity, setting a precedent for every lead-footed driver who has ever been pulled over on an Ohio roadway since. 27. The Iron Walls of Mansfield. The Ohio State Reformatory in Mansfield is a massive Gothic structure that looks more like a haunted castle than a prison. Built in the late 19th century, it was designed to inspire inmates to repent through grand architecture and religious reflection. It houses the largest freestanding steel cell block in the world, a towering labyrinth of bars and cold metal. While the prison closed its doors in 1990, the stories of the men who lived within its walls continue to echo through the corridors. Many visitors claim to feel a chilling presence in the solitary confinement cells, or hear the clanging of ghost gates in the night. Its grim beauty was so captivating that it served as the primary filming location for the movie The Shawshank Redemption. Today, it stands as a monument to a harsh era of justice and a favorite destination for those seeking spirits. 26. The Visitors over Liberty Township. On a cold night in December of 1994, the police dispatchers in Trumbull County were overwhelmed by a surge of frantic phone calls. Citizens and law enforcement officers alike reported seeing a massive silent object hovering in the night sky. One officer described the craft as being as large as a football field, equipped with pulsating lights that defied any known aircraft technology of the era. The object moved with incredible speed, zipping across the horizon before hovering perfectly still once again. Even military officials at the nearby airbase could not provide a clear explanation for what their radar was picking up. Unlike many sightings that can be dismissed as swamp gas or weather balloons, the sheer number of credible witnesses from multiple police departments makes this one of the most compelling unidentified flying object encounters in the history of the Midwest. 25. The Incorruptible Cashier of Dayton. In 1879, a saloon owner in Dayton named James Riddy was tired of his employees pocketing his profits. While traveling on a steamboat to Europe, he became fascinated by a mechanism that counted the revolutions of the ship propeller. This sparked an idea for a machine that could record financial transactions and prevent theft. Upon his return, he and his brother developed the first mechanical cash register, which they called the Riddy Incorruptible Cashier. It used metal keys and a bell that rang every time a sale was made, signaling to the owner that money was entering the drawer. Although he eventually sold the business, his invention laid the foundation for the National Cash Register Company. This single device revolutionized the world of commerce and turned Dayton into a global hub of industrial innovation, ensuring that every penny spent was a penny accounted for in business. 24. The Anonymous Shadow of Circleville. Beginning in 1976, the residents of a small town called Circleville began receiving mysterious, threatening letters. These were not random notes, but detailed accounts of personal secrets and alleged scandals, all written in a strange, blocky handwriting. The primary target was a school bus driver named Mary Gillespie, who was accused of having an illicit affair. Even after her husband died in a suspicious car crash, the letters continued, becoming even more aggressive and revealing. One day, Mary found a booby trap along her bus route designed to kill her, which led to the arrest of her brother-in-law. However, while he was in prison, the letters kept arriving, often postmarked from Columbus. To this day, the true identity of the Circleville letter writer remains one of the most baffling and disturbing mysteries in the history of the state, leaving behind a legacy of paranoia. 23. The Abandoned Secrets of Boston Township. Deep within the Cuyahoga Valley lies a place local legends call Helltown. The story began in the 1970s when the federal government used eminent domain to buy up the entire village of Boston to create a national park. Homes were boarded up and a community was erased overnight. This sudden displacement fueled wild rumors of chemical spills, mutated creatures, and secretive cults operating in the woods. One popular tale speaks of a haunted school bus left behind after its passengers met a grisly end. In reality, the buildings were simply part of a standard land acquisition, but the sight of a deserted town slowly being reclaimed by the forest created a perfect breeding ground for folklore. While the area is now a beautiful part of the national park system, hikers still whisper about the ghosts of the residents who were forced to leave their lives behind. 22. The ruin of the international city. In late June of 1924, a massive storm system swept across the Great Lakes, but it reserved its most devastating fury for the city of Lorraine. A powerful tornado, estimated to be a Category 4 on the modern scale, tore through the business district on a busy Saturday afternoon. The State Theater was filled with families watching a silent film when the roof collapsed, claiming many lives in a matter of heartbeats. The destruction was so complete that the downtown area looked as if it had been systematically leveled by a heavy military bombardment. Over 80 people were killed, and the financial toll was astronomical for the time. This disaster prompted the community to rebuild with a newfound resilience, but the memory of that darkening sky and the sudden, violent roar of the wind still lingers in the local lore of Northern Ohio residents today. 21. The day the earth roared in Xenia, April 3rd, 1974, is a date etched into the memory of every resident of Xenia. On that afternoon, a monster Category 5 tornado, part of a massive super outbreak, roared through the heart of the town. It was so powerful that it wiped entire neighborhoods off the map and tossed heavy school buses onto roofs like they were children's toys. The wind speeds were estimated to have reached over 300 miles per hour, making it one of the most violent storms ever recorded in human history. In the aftermath, the community was left in ruins, with 33 people losing their lives. However, the spirit of Xenia remained unbroken. The town adopted the motto "Xenia Lives" and began a massive reconstruction effort. This event served as a critical turning point for meteorology, leading to better warning systems that save countless lives every single year. 20. The small house of big ideas. In the quiet village of Milan, Ohio, stands a modest red brick house that served as the birthplace of Thomas Alva Edison in 1847. It is hard to believe that the man who would eventually hold over 1,000 patents and light up the entire world began his journey in such a humble setting. Edison was not a star pupil. In fact, his teachers thought he was quite slow and easily distracted. His mother ended up schooling him at home, where his insatiable curiosity flourished. He spent his childhood exploring the local canal and experimenting with chemicals in the cellar. This small Ohio home represents the quintessence of the American dream, proving that world-changing innovation does not require a laboratory in a major city. It only requires a wandering mind and the freedom to ask why things work the way they do in our physical world. 19. The ghostly light of Moonville. Tucked away in the dense woods of Vinton County lies the Moonville Tunnel, a silent remnant of a once thriving coal mining community. The town is long gone, reclaimed by the creeping vines and shadows, but the legend of the ghostly brakeman remains. In the late 19th century, a railway worker was purportedly struck and killed by a passing locomotive near the tunnel entrance. Ever since that tragic night, locals and visitors have reported seeing a swinging lantern glowing in the darkness of the tunnel. Some claim to hear the faint whistle of a ghost train or the heavy boots of a man walking on the gravel, while skeptics say the light is merely a reflection or a trick of the eye. The isolation of the forest makes every rustle of the leaves feel like a spectral presence watching from the deep, dark timber of the hills. 18. The Ashtabula River Horror. On a freezing night in December of 1876, the Pacific Express was carrying over 150 passengers toward Chicago. As the train crossed the iron bridge over the Ashtabula River, the structure suddenly gave way under the weight of the heavy locomotives and the thick snow. The wooden passenger cars plummeted 70 feet into the icy ravine below. To make matters worse, the oil lamps used for heating quickly ignited the splintered wreckage, turning the snowy valley into an inferno. 92 people perished in the mangled burning metal. This catastrophe was the deadliest rail accident in the history of the United States of America at that point, and led to a massive overhaul of bridge engineering standards. The architect of the bridge, devastated by the failure of his design, later took his own life, adding a layer of personal tragedy to this dark chapter. 17. The 7-story picnic basket. In the town of Newark, Ohio, motorists are often stunned to see a giant picnic basket rising 7 stories into the air. This is not a hallucination, but the former corporate headquarters of the Longaberger Company. Completed in 1997, the building is a literal representation of their most famous product, complete with 2 massive copper and steel handles that weigh nearly 150 tons. The handles are even equipped with heating elements to prevent ice from forming and falling onto the glass ceiling below. It is a masterpiece of mimetic architecture, standing as a testament to the quirky ambition of the company founder, Dave Longaberger. While the company has faced financial struggles over the years, the building remains a beloved roadside oddity. It proves that in Ohio, even a simple household item can be scaled up to become a monumental piece of the skyline. 16. The Serpent of the Hills. High on a plateau overlooking Brush Creek in Adams County lies the Great Serpent Mound, a prehistoric effigy that stretches over 1,300 feet in length. This ancient earthwork depicts a massive snake with a winding tail and an open mouth that appears to be swallowing an egg. Archaeologists have debated its origins for decades, attributing it to either the Adena or Fort Ancient cultures. What is truly remarkable is that the mound aligns with several astronomical events, including the summer solstice sunset. This suggests that the ancient people of Ohio possessed a sophisticated understanding of the stars and the seasons. Walking along the grassy curves of the serpent, one can feel the weight of centuries pressing down. It is a silent, earthy monument to a civilization that lived, worshipped, and observed the heavens long before a single European foot touched this vast continent. 15. The Tragedy at Riverfront Coliseum. In December of 1979, thousands of excited fans gathered outside the Riverfront Coliseum in Cincinnati for a concert by the legendary rock band The Who. Because the venue used unreserved festival seating, the crowd began to push forward as soon as the doors opened. In the chaotic surge, 11 young people were crushed to death, while many others were injured in the frantic press of bodies. Surprisingly, the concert went on as planned because city officials feared that canceling the show would spark a massive riot among the thousands of people already inside. The band members were not even told about the deaths until after their performance ended. This heartbreaking event led to a nationwide ban on festival seating in many arenas and forced the music industry to completely rethink crowd control and safety protocols for large-scale public gatherings across the globe. 14. The Monster of Lake Erie. For centuries, sailors on the Great Lakes have whispered tales of a creature lurking in the deep, cold waters of Lake Erie. Commonly known as Bessie, this legendary lake monster is often described as a long, serpentine beast measuring between 30 and 40 feet in length. The first recorded sighting dates back to 1793, when a captain reported a large snake swimming near his vessel. Over the years, dozens of credible witnesses, including professional fishermen and local residents, have claimed to see dark humps breaking the surface of the water. Some believe it could be a massive sturgeon or an undiscovered species of aquatic reptile. While no scientific proof exists, the legend has become a staple of Ohio folklore. Whether it is a real animal or a collective hallucination, Bessie remains a symbol of the enduring mysteries that hide within the vastness of the Great Lakes. 13. The Beacon on the Hill. In the town of Ripley, perched on a high bluff overlooking the Ohio River, sits the modest home of Reverend John Rankin. During the mid-19th century, this house served as one of the most active stations on the Underground Railroad. Rankin would place a lantern in his window every night, a literal beacon of hope that could be seen by enslaved people seeking freedom on the Kentucky side of the water. It is estimated that Rankin and his family helped over 2,000 individuals escape to the north. One of these daring escapes even inspired Harriet Beecher Stowe to write a famous scene in her novel Uncle Tom's Cabin. The climb up the steep hill to the Rankin house was arduous, but for those fleeing bondage, it was the final triumphant trek toward a new life of liberty and self-determination in a free land. 12. The Geometric Wonders of Newark. Long before modern engineers arrived, the Hopewell people constructed a massive complex of earthworks in Newark that covers nearly 4 square miles. These are not just simple mounds, but precise geometric shapes, including a perfect circle and an octagon connected by long parallel walls. The scale is immense, with the circle encompassing over 30 acres of land. What makes this site truly mind-boggling is the mathematical precision and the alignment with the lunar cycle. The octagon is designed to track the movements of the moon over an 18.6-year period, a feat that requires generational observation and advanced knowledge of geometry. Today, part of the site is curiously shared with a private golf course, creating a strange juxtaposition juxtaposition of ancient sacred space and modern recreation. It remains one of the most significant archaeological wonders in North America, highlighting the genius of Ohio's first inhabitants. 11. The bicycle shop that took flight. In a small shop on West 3rd Street in Dayton, two brothers named Wilbur and Orville Wright spent their days repairing bicycles. However, their minds were far above the greasy chains and rubber tires. While others were trying to build massive, heavy engines, the Wrights focused on balance and control, studying how birds warped their wings to steer through the wind. In 1903, they took their Ohio-built glider to Kitty Hawk, North Carolina because of its steady winds, but the Flyer was born in Dayton. Those two brothers, who never even graduated from high school, proved that the sky wasn't a ceiling. It was a vast open playground for human ingenuity. Before moving on to story number 10, remember to subscribe and like to become an expert on the history of our wonderful country. 10. The river that caught fire. On a sweltering day in June of 1969, the Cuyahoga River in Cleveland did the unthinkable. It burst into flames. Decades of industrial waste and oil slicks had turned the water into a flammable sludge. While it wasn't the first time the river had burned, this particular fire caught the attention of Time magazine and the national media. The image of a river on fire became a powerful symbol of the environmental crisis, directly leading to the creation of the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, and the Clean Water Act. Today, the Cuyahoga is a success story, teeming with fish and kayakers, a reminder that we have the power to heal what we have broken. 9. The Silver Bridge and the Mothman. On December 15th, 1967, during the rush hour commute, the Silver Bridge connecting Gallipolis, Ohio to Point Pleasant, West Virginia, suddenly collapsed into the icy Ohio River. 46 people lost their lives in the disaster, which was caused by a single tiny defect in an I-bar chain. In the months leading up to the collapse, residents on both sides of the river reported sightings of a terrifying red-eyed creature known as the Mothman. While engineers pointed to metal fatigue, the legend of the Mothman persists as a dark omen of the tragedy. It remains one of the most chilling intersections of structural engineering and paranormal folklore in American history. 8. The Little Sure Shot. Born into poverty in Darkey County in 1860, Phoebe Ann Moses learned early that survival demanded skill, patience, and courage. After her father's death, she took up a rifle to hunt game, providing food for her widowed mother and younger siblings. What began as necessity quickly revealed extraordinary talent. Her aim was so precise that by selling game and winning shooting matches, she managed to pay off her mother's mortgage, an almost unheard of achievement for a young girl in rural America at the time. As her reputation grew, Phoebe adopted the stage name Annie Oakley and stepped onto a much larger stage. She became the star attraction of Buffalo Bill's Wild West show, astonishing audiences across the United States and Europe. Oakley's performances were not just displays of marksmanship, but of discipline and control. She could split a playing card edge on from 30 paces, shatter glass balls midair, or shoot a cigarette cleanly from her husband Frank Butler's mouth. Feats that seemed almost impossible. Yet Annie Oakley's legacy went beyond spectacle. She challenged rigid ideas about women's roles, proving that skill and professionalism knew no gender. Despite international fame, she remained humble, generous, and deeply connected to her Ohio roots. She often donated her earnings to charities and taught others to shoot responsibly. Her famous words captured both her philosophy and her life's journey. Aim at a high mark and you will hit it. No, not the first time, nor the second, and maybe not the third, but keep on aiming and keep on shooting. In those words lies the spirit of perseverance that turned a poor Ohio girl into an enduring American legend. 7. The Ice Age's fingernails. On Kelly's Island in Lake Erie, you can find the most spectacular glacial grooves in the world. These massive troughs were carved into the solid limestone about 18,000 years ago by the sheer weight and movement of the Wisconsin Glacier. The ice sheet was over a mile thick, and as it crawled across the landscape, it dragged rocks and debris that acted like giant sandpaper, gouging deep channels into the bedrock. Looking at these grooves today is like looking at the fingerprints of a frozen giant, offering a silent, prehistoric testimony to the incredible forces that shape the very ground we walk on. 6. The birth of a Sunday obsession. In 1920, a group of men met in a Hupmobile auto showroom in Canton, Ohio, to organize a professional football league. They sat on the fenders of the cars because there weren't enough chairs. That meeting led to the formation of what we now know as the National Football League, NFL. Canton was chosen because it was home to the legendary Jim Thorpe and the Canton Bulldogs, who were the powerhouse team team of the era. Today, the Pro Football Hall of Fame stands in Canton as a temple to the sport, marking the spot where a few guys in a car dealership turned a rough and tumble game into a billion-dollar American cultural phenomenon. 5. The Great Flood of 1913. In March of 1913, a massive storm system stalled over the Midwest, dumping nearly a foot of rain in just a few days. The Great Miami River in Dayton couldn't hold the volume, and the city was submerged under 20 feet of water. People were trapped in attics, and fires broke out when gas lines ruptured. Over 360 people died in what remains Ohio's greatest natural disaster. However, the tragedy led to the creation of the Miami Conservancy District, the first regional flood control system of its kind in the nation. It was an engineering marvel that has kept Dayton dry for over a century, proving that tragedy can be the father of true protection. 4. The day the music died in Kent. On May 4th, 1970, the campus of Kent State University became a battlefield. During a protest against the Cambodian campaign of the Vietnam War, members of the Ohio National Guard opened fire on a crowd of students. In just 13 seconds, 67 shots were fired, leaving 4 students dead and 9 others wounded. Some of those hit were not even part of the protest. They were simply walking to class. The event sent a shockwave through the soul of the nation, triggering a student strike of 4 million people and forever changing the American political landscape. It remains a somber reminder of the fragile line between dissent and authority. 3. The Rock and Roll Revolution. Why is the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland? It isn't a random decision or a matter of convenience. It is rooted in the city's deep and often overlooked role in shaping modern music. In the early 1950s, Cleveland disc jockey Alan Freed began using the term rock and roll on his radio program to describe a new, electrifying sound that blended rhythm and blues with country influences. At a time of rigid social divisions, Freed's broadcast crossed racial and cultural lines, giving young listeners a shared musical language. In 1952, Cleveland again made history when Freed organized the Moondog Coronation Ball. Though the event famously ended early due to overcrowding, it is widely recognized as the world's first rock concert. That chaotic night captured the raw energy, rebellion, and youthful hunger that would define rock music for decades. Cleveland became the place where the genre did more than exist. It exploded. The city's influence did not fade with time. Cleveland remained a crucial stop on touring circuits and a proving ground for new sounds, earning its reputation as a true rock town. Today, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame rises on the shores of Lake Erie, its striking glass pyramid designed by I.M. Pei, reflecting both the past and the future. Inside, it honors artists who challenged norms, rewrote musical rules, and reshaped global culture. The building stands as a reminder that rock and roll was born not just from sound, but from a city willing to amplify its rebellious spirit and let it be heard by the world. 2. The first man on the moon. On a hot July night in 1969, the entire world held its breath as a man from Wapakoneta, Ohio, climbed down the ladder of the lunar module Eagle. Neil Armstrong's one small step was the culmination of thousands of years of human dreaming. Growing up in Ohio, Armstrong was fascinated by flight, earning his pilot's license before he even had a driver's license. His calm, steady demeanor under pressure was the quintessential Ohio trait. When he stepped onto the lunar dust, he didn't just represent NASA, he represented every small town kid with a big dream and the discipline to follow it all the way to the stars. 1. The spirit of the Buckeye. Why are we the Buckeye State? The answer reaches deep into Ohio's soil and far across its history. It begins with a tree, Aesculus glabra, whose smooth dark brown nuts bear a pale mark resembling the eye of a deer. Early settlers carried these buckeyes in their pockets as charms, tokens of familiarity in a land that was still raw and uncertain. Over time, the buckeye became more than a curiosity of nature. It became a quiet emblem of belonging. The name took on national meaning during the presidential campaign of 1840. William Henry Harrison, an Ohio native, embraced the buckeye as a symbol of frontier grit. His supporters paraded buckeye cabins, canes carved from buckeye wood, and songs that celebrated simplicity, toughness, and self-reliance. What began as a political image evolved into a badge of honor, one that Ohioans claimed for themselves. To be a buckeye is to be resilient and grounded, shaped by hard winters, rich farmland, and a tradition of steady work. It suggests practicality mixed with stubborn pride, a willingness to endure setbacks and keep moving forward. The name bridges eras, from the ancient Hopewell earthworks and river valleys to modern cities filled with research hospitals, factories, and high-tech laboratories. Today, the Buckeye lives everywhere in Ohio's culture. It might be a polished nut tucked away for luck, a leaf stitched onto a uniform, or the flash of scarlet and gray on a fall Saturday when stadiums roar to life. In every form, it carries the same meaning. The Buckeye is not just a symbol, it is a shared heartbeat, a reminder that Ohio has always been a place where ordinary people reach for something greater and, through persistence, make it their own. After watching these 33 stories about Ohio, tell us, did you know any of them? Which one did you like best, or which one surprised you the most? Let us know in the comments. Let's see how many of us share the same story, and if you think we've missed something or want to add something, we'd love to hear from you. Your feedback helps us improve each video. Also, if you noticed any pronunciation mistakes, thank you for your patience. We strive to improve with every video. And speaking of videos, there's another one playing right now so you can continue exploring the history of our beautiful country. But before you go, don't forget to subscribe and like so we can keep learning together. See you in the next one.